Hey there, welcome to episode 109 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 5:54 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't know if you heard that motorcycle driving by, production by street. 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in the Greater Vegas area on this Wednesday, December 10, 2025. We normally publish every Wednesday, so getting a good early start. Might actually make it for Wednesday morning instead of afternoon, as has been the case recently. Today's title and topic, Idiosyncrasies, Part 1. If you are not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, maybe this is the first time you're listening, welcome. The Quaggling Sand audio program is essentially a collection of audio essays, monologues, from yours truly, stories, tales, recollections, maybe entertaining, maybe educational, maybe enlightening, one of those, maybe all. There are no guests, at least there have not been, and I don't know that there ever would be. You never know, but it's pretty much just me and my recollections. So today we're talking about idiosyncrasies, which are not necessarily recollections in this case, probably more sort of the foundation of some of the recollections or some of the things I've discovered or realized about me, of course, the star of the show. Nothing too exciting, don't worry. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting to me anyway. It might be interesting to you. If you know me outside in the real world, you might think, oh, okay, that explains a couple of things. But again, yeah, nothing too dramatic, to be honest. Don't get your hopes up. I'm pretty boring. So quaggling sand, by the way, a technical term I coined when I was very young, in the low single digits, age-wise. It's a term that I coined to describe something because I was not familiar with the term you probably use. You and the rest of the world probably uses something like pins and needles. That sensation when circulation is returning to, say, a hand or an arm or a foot or what have you, when circulation was cut off for some reason, if you were sitting funny, laying on your arm, fell asleep on your hand, whatever the case. Quaggling sand, sort of like recalling these things. It's like sand floating around, swirling like a little dust devil, as they call them. Sands through an hourglass, whatever the case may be. Use your imagination. I try to as well. So let's get this started. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary of one sentence. Yeah, not too bad. Along with some links. There are 2 regular links and 1 episode link. So let me read that summary to you and we'll get on with it. Maybe not literally idiosyncrasies. Surely others will have similar traits and others mingled in some combination. But sometimes I think about these and make some connections of my own. Here's part 1. Don't forget Quaggling Sand has its homepage, quagglingsand.com, QUOGGLINGSAND, quagglingsand.com. There will be more to the site. I'm going to stop making excuses for ugly website that doesn't have all the things that I want. I actually have to update all of the websites for all of my programming and various other things. So it'll get there. I don't really get a lot of web traffic, so I'm not totally, I'm not crying in my Cheerios. Cheerios are good, but I don't really eat Cheerios, to be honest. Not regularly. But if I had some, there I would be. Quagglingsand.com. Part of my overall primary point of publication being my own site or server as part of the Posse effort, publish on your own site, syndicate elsewhere. So rather than relying entirely on, say, Spotify for creators, which is normally the primary point at the moment, we can publish from a site that I own and then use Spotify for the secondary. So keep quagglingsand.com handy or in mind if you are interested in the show. And it's not only about the audio program part, there should be other elements. So everything's always a work in progress. Don't forget. The profile page linking everything I've had for several years. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. On that profile page, you will find links to all of the stuff, all of the things including the link I just mentioned, quaglingsand.com, a link to the YouTube channel for Quaggling Sand, the Spotify for Creators profile page. I could put other links, but ideally there will be a lot of places to find the audio programming at least. But the point is to always have a reliable site server that I own and control, so I don't have to rely on a third party. Sage advice, if I may suggest. It's not coming from me. It's coming from IndieWeb. It's a throwback to the old days. Finally, Idiosyncrasy, the Wikipedia page for Idiosyncrasy. The idiosyncrasy is normally something that's, I don't think normal people would use that word in this way, but technically it means something unique, uniquely unusual. So I don't think, as I mentioned in the summary, I don't think these are entirely unique, the things that I'm going to mention today. But yeah, you be the judge. I don't know. First of all, we can talk about sleep briefly because I think I did a whole entire episode about sleeping or lack thereof. Starting off easy, I have always been known for being awake, staying awake for long periods, for being most likely to be awake at some points, especially in college. You get the idea. I have an entire episode about sleep somewhere in the past, as I mentioned. No surprise here. I tend to need less sleep if I'm focused on something interesting. This probably applies to many people. It is rare that I need to deal with something like insomnia. Almost never, in fact. I don't tend to be kept awake fretting, usually, or at least not in a very long time. I will say I do much better if I have an exercise or physical activity cycle in progress. So if I'm going to the gym regularly, I try to get out and get outside and walk, get away from the computer, AFK, away from keyboard, as they say. So getting good and tired from the walking and going to the gym, for example, or other such things is good. Diet helps a lot. So I've talked about the keto in the past. I think that was an effective combination for me, a regular exercise and keto-friendly diet. If not continuously, then at least with Cheeto days sprinkled in. And some things to focus on, like stuff to do, whether reading or working on something or some things like work, or just a reason to be up in general. If I do go to the gym, often around 2 a.m. or so, and I do not have something in particular to do when I return home, there may be some difficulty sleeping, so having something to pursue is good. Lately, that'll probably be reading. If it's I don't read books on a phone. I actually really prefer audiobooks lately. But if I find myself overly awake, having just returned from the gym with nothing particular to do, it'll probably be a YouTube, not quite autoplay, but just recommended videos, whatever, some reaction video or something. Or I'll play a puzzle game or something. Maybe drift off to sleep. So yeah, sleep. I know some people are like, get that blue light from your computer or your mobile screen away. It's horrible. And you have to you got to get 8 hours of sleep a night. I've never had that. So hopefully I won't pay for that later. Won't pay too much anyway. Visibility. This will probably be kind of weird, but not really. Not really when you think about it. First, the baseline, as they say, a cluttered desk is a sign of genius, and while that is not universally accepted, it may not be universally true if it is accepted. That is, I don't think that applies to everyone. It might apply to me, I don't know. I like to think of this as a viable excuse for my own clutter either way. I like to be organized, sometimes. A place for everything and everything in its place, sure, but that is so often not the case. I will say when I was traveling quite a bit for Intel, I got into a rhythm of laundry, packing, the ride to the airport, usually Lyft, rideshare, because I knew completely and totally, no doubt, being organized when you're heading to the airport for international travel does pay dividends later. Well, starting immediately, actually. But in general, I tend to like to be organized, but I tend to not be as organized. And it's a slippery slope from there. I think the main reason, maybe excuse, is that I really, really prefer to see things so I know where they are or when they need to be replaced or replenished or what have you. Like I think a glass front refrigerator might suit me. And I definitely do not care for cabinet doors or cabinet fronts, if you prefer, in the kitchen. So I often leave them open. I'm fairly certain this would drive my mother crazy, being the professional and very experienced kitchen designer in the family. Cabinet doors are critical. Getting things out of sight is a big deal. Personally, I would be fine with no cabinetry, just shelving, if that makes sense. I prefer open shelves in general, not just in the kitchen. I have a variety of open shelving units that break down for moving. That's kind of comes in handy. I have a walk-in closet. It has an oversized door that is not so easy to open if there is clutter around it, and I got to tell you, there is. Which means anything in there in that walk-in closet, which is not huge, but it's it's a reasonable chunk of space. Anything in there may as well be somewhere else. Do we even need to touch on the notion of boxes and moving? Although it is sort of weird. Occasionally, and we'll get to this in 2 sections from now, but occasionally I will, even though I don't know, like the boxes aren't calling to me like, you got to empty the boxes. They're sort of out of sight. The things that are in the boxes are out of sight. So I'm not connected to them until I need something. And if it's soon enough after I've moved, like we're not talking years, but months later, if I can imagine the object and I can pull up like when I was packing it or where it was, then I'll probably determine what other items, and I'll try to imagine which box. I can get pretty close, and that's useful, but it also fades. So at this point, there are things in boxes and I don't know where they are, which is always fun until I move again, but then I don't, you get the idea. But yeah, visibility. The cluttered desk is literally, I like to see where stuff is. If it's in a drawer, it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm quite positive this would be annoying to many people. So I try not to worry about that. Complex versus complicated. I would rather tackle something complex to me, than a complicated sequence that may be lengthy. I may have covered this somewhere in this series of audio programs, the episodes of this one, that brought us here, this series, 107 episodes or so. I'm sorry, 109. Can't even count anymore. So I may have covered this, that complicated things may have many steps and they may be challenging or time consuming, but the complication has a beginning and an end. So you know how it's going to work no matter how long it takes. It has an endpoint and likely success. Complexities, on the other hand, may not have an end and may not have a known set of steps. So you're kind of guessing sometimes. There are a lot of complex things in the world. You may have heard of the 3-body problem, for example. Just there are things that we kind of have some notion of, but we don't really know. We don't completely understand. They seem to do something, but we don't know why. So those are the sorts of things that are hard to reproduce, they're hard to model, they're hard to predict, etc., etc. So the quick complicated versus complex comparison. I say things are personally complex if a complicated undertaking is unfamiliar or wholly unknown. And then so to me, a complicated task that I have never attempted may seem complex. Learning something new basically has some unknowns. These are interesting, especially if they are actually doable. If they can be completed, if they can be completed, becoming personally complicated from personally complex, or maybe personally not complicated. So it might actually be pretty simple, as is the case, maybe. What is it? 6:09 in the morning? Okay. So, here's an odd example. Juggling to the uninitiated is kind of complex. How do you even keep track of where things are and what's going on? So outwardly to a spectator, juggling seems complex. I could never do that. Then once you actually learn how to do it, you kind of cross over into, wow, this is actually not complicated at all. Until you say, oh, what if I did 5 pins instead of 3 beanbags? So you can make it more complicated, but at the end of the day, once you get over that personal complexity hump, once you get up over that, it's a matter of it's a matter of complication, no longer a matter of complexity. So engineering, especially computer and software engineering, are process oriented. These are things with equations and rules and accumulated knowledge and so on. Coming up with the sequence of steps and making it reproducible and over time less complicated and maybe cheaper or faster or some other optimization is a thing we do. But I think I probably do better with maybe excel at figuring out what the steps are and all that. Maybe this is more about solving puzzles, which I do enjoy to some extent, but not as much something designed to be a puzzle as something that is a puzzle. In other words, I don't completely and totally enjoy jigsaw puzzles, but if something is unknown to me, how does this work? I probably will be more interested in that. So something that's personally complex until it becomes some level of complicated. Thank you. So if that makes sense, what I'm saying is that I prefer to try to solve things than to repeat, rinse, wash, rinse, repeat. So I tend to be, I'll tend to be more easily procrastinating if it's, I got to do that thing again, same old thing as last time. But if it's, hey, here's something I've never done before. And in fact, usually during interviews, if I interview for a job, well, this is historically, I came to be completely comfortable telling people I normally prefer working on things I've never done before, which is usually a winner for interviewing. Well, by all means, let's hire you to do something you've never done before. Finally, this is a brief episode, by the way. I don't know if I started off by saying that. We're coming up at the end of the year. It's there's tons of stuff going on. But yeah, I think I was thinking earlier, I got to deal with some cloud stuff. And I don't know if you ever work on the cloud, if you ever, transfer files, configure servers, configure other infrastructure as code components or other such things. The entire idea is to make it easier to complete these steps. So there's abstractions and automations and so on. And I really like the automations, but if there's not an automation and I got to learn another thing to figure out how to automate it, then it's personally complex. That's fine. But then once I've done that, and I have done that before, now it becomes a complication, and I know it's complicated. I know it's a lot of steps and it's a lot of testing and debugging and trying to figure out why that didn't work correctly and so on. But I know where to look. I know how to look. I know how to slog through it. So earlier I was thinking, I got to check on that. And I right away am recalling, that's kind of a pain. I know I have to do 48 different things. So that becomes daunting and it tends to push me away. But if I have no idea, if I'm like, I need to solve this problem, then it becomes slightly more interesting and I'm more likely to be intrigued enough to stick with it. Puzzles, by the way, have a solution. This is kind of like complicated and complex. So puzzles have a solution. As you move towards that solution, you are moving towards the solution. You're unlikely, and the jigsaw puzzle example kind of fits in here nicely, so to speak. If you place a piece in a correct position and orientation and so on in a jigsaw puzzle, you have moved closer to finishing the puzzle by one piece. Now, if you put the piece in the wrong place, you'll probably have a visual cue. It either won't fit correctly or the image on the piece that you just placed doesn't fit in the overall picture or image that's on the jigsaw puzzle. That's a usual jigsaw puzzle model. So this is what makes setting up the outer edge, which I think is a typical strategy. The outer edge pieces have one flat side. So now you have two sides to worry about. You have to worry about whether it's oriented such that it's at the top, left, right, or bottom edge. Then you can start accumulating pieces that look like they fit together. So that means the first place you want to start is the corner pieces. So there's a complicated step process to completing a jigsaw puzzle. And it might take a while, 10,000 piece puzzle. It's going to take a lot longer than a 1,000 piece puzzle. But the path to completion is complicated but predictable. There is a path, and it's unlikely that you will come up with the wrong answer. A mystery, on the other hand, may or may not have a correct answer. It may or may not have a path to the answer, figuring out who done it. There may be clues that are misleading. There may be ponderings that drive effort in the wrong direction. You may be moving towards a solution to the mystery, but it turns out that wasn't the right person at all, or wasn't the right set of circumstances at all, and so on. So I'm not against mysteries, but puzzles are preferable if you like. So I'm more of a puzzle person. And in fact, mysteries, if you're diligent, I think the first thing to do in the case of a mystery is to try to reduce it to a puzzle. And you're probably going to be a little bit better off approaching an answer. Not always possible, but it's we call this identifying the root cause. So once you can figure out what's going on here, oh, okay, now we know what's going on here, and it took a while, but now we've reduced it. The root cause has these 25 different steps, and it gets you to here, and here's how we can fix it. So that's the kind of stuff I've done through my career, and that's worked out pretty well. So that fits into my mode. Finally, the thing that's kind of weird, and I have a couple things jotted down for part 2, so I'm keeping part 1 kind of like the easier to take, I guess, or you're probably thinking these things are not idiosyncratic. I have the same thing. I have a cluttered kitchen. I don't like putting things in cabinets. There's an entire mode of operation in a kitchen where you just have things in the dishwasher and you just have multiple dishwashers. So you basically bounce back and forth. So yeah, nothing I've said here thus far has been too crazy. This one is a little bit weird, probably the weirdest of all these, maybe. There's a movie called Limitless. If you've seen the movie, and I've never seen the television show version, but it did get converted into a series of shows, and I don't even know if it's still on. You know the idea, the star of the movie, and I'm totally spacing on his name, but the movie itself is not important. But if you know the idea, if you know the story, the star of the movie takes a substance called NZT. It's fictitious. There is no such thing as far as people know, which gives him the intense ability to recall and connect memories and ideas, to learn quickly, and so on and so on. The suggestion is that this substance allows for the use of 100% of the brain, which is one of those things that's completely misused in expression. We all use a huge percentage of our brain for a lot of things. So this notion that 80% of your brain is unused. Now, I'm not going to argue that there are not people like that, because you probably encounter people that you're thinking, are they using their entire brain? It doesn't seem like it. And you're probably correct. But the point of the movie is that it unlocked some secret powers, some latent abilities. But when I saw the movie, I don't have that. I don't have this level of intensity of this effect. But when I saw the movie way back when, I had one of those, hey, that seems familiar moments. And if you see the movie, the effect, the way that they're illustrating this to the audience, is really what I'm talking about. Basically, I have a pretty decent memory, and I can often recall things, sometimes quickly, sometimes eventually, and more quickly if I'm immersed or otherwise engaged in something. I don't spring out of bed ready for recalling things like, oh, good morning. Let me think about the 25 things that happened 10 years ago. But if I'm working on something, or if I'm having a conversation and I'm kind of embroiled, then it's more likely that the things that are relevant to the task or the conversation will begin to make themselves known sort of automatically. It's not really a thing that I try to do, but it's, and if you've seen the movie, just things become visible in his internal mind's eye field of view. So, but the more important part, I think it's more important, is that I can often see, literally, mentally see connections or paths between notions, relationships that might be useful, and with these sometimes leading to other recollections and so on. So I've kind of likened it to, I can't really even describe it, but if you saw the movie, it's very similar to that. Things just sort of kind of appear, a visual memory, or it could be audio, but it's usually visual. So I'm envisioning when or where, the circumstances where I heard something or whatever the case. So, and that comes in handy because I start to say, oh, okay, so it's almost like shuffling cards around on a table. I'm going to put this card here. I'm going to put that. Or if you've ever done like a idea, what do you call it? like note cards. So you write ideas on note cards and you group them and you try to figure out, sort them, how they're going to fit together and so on. It's almost exactly like that. And then these might lead to, oh, okay, oh, that's how that was really, oh, okay. And then that, I remember now the other thing, so it just sort of unfurls. I have a feeling this contributes to my not enjoying complicated manual processes, maybe recalling too many details, maybe tedious or boring, while a complex undertaking, complex to me, in that I don't necessarily know how it works yet, a complex undertaking, though, if I actually enjoy a complicated task or if there is a clear value proposition, I think that mitigates my desire to avoid such things, but the complex task becomes more interesting because I don't know. So that's not a hard and fast rule, but I think that kind of contributes to it. I'm also wondering if that sort of contributes to this notion that things have to be visible to me, or I prefer it, so that if I, leaving the cabinet doors open, like looking at things, like I have a bunch of things that are splayed out, shelving, open shelves, kitchen counter, etc. Right, so I can see those things, which are reminders, they are components of other memories, and so on. So I have a feeling these things kind of fit together, and then because like a collection of steps in a complicated process become, if they're tedious to me, they become sort of like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do and I don't want to deal with it. So that's actually kind of a pain. So unless I can map like urgency to drive away the frustration or the boredom or the angst, even like, I don't want to have to call, and then I got to wait, and then I got to do this, and then I got to look up this other information, and then I got to fill out a form. And then, so once you know about all these tedious steps, now the ends may justify the means, and that's totally fine. That is a realistic possibility. But a lot of times it isn't, and that's where procrastination comes in, like putting it off until, oh, okay, I really have to do this. And so my intuition says that all of these things are sort of interrelated, which can make me kind of annoying to deal with. That's funny to me. So just a teaser for part 2, and there may be a part 3 actually, but part 2, I have talked about being car-free and carefree before, but there are some subtleties to that I think are kind of interesting for me. So yeah, that kind of fits into some of the other things I've been saying. I used to love driving, but I've come to realize that it's so much better to not have a car. Like, it's difficult to describe how much better it is. So I don't know if that's idiosyncratic or just I'm in one half of the population maybe, but I think it fits into some of the other things. We'll see in part 2 how that goes. The Fortress of Solitude, and I'll just leave that there. There's a Simpsons episode from forever ago. They're somehow out camping or something, and one of the characters and the comic book guy, I don't remember if he has a name, but he has a comic book store or whatever. So there's an outhouse, there's a porta potty, if you like, not an outhouse, but a green structure, portable bathroom, and somehow it gets knocked over, or the top or the outer shell gets knocked away or something, and so comic book guy is sitting in this portable toilet, and I don't know if he was probably reading a comic book, and he says, I guess I'll have to find another Fortress of Solitude, and that always stuck with me. So maybe I'll try to find that link before. And then some notes on world travel, or things really that I've picked up in my world travels and just the way that I approach certain things. So these all fit into this general mode. And then if there's a part 3, I'm trying to think about the sort of the culmination of these various elements that might lead to what is more literally idiosyncratic. Like, oh, okay, this combination of things is not so normal at all. But we'll see. We'll see what I can come up with. This self-reflection stuff for the end of the calendar year is a change of pace. So we'll bring back stories soon enough. So on that note, I got 32 minutes on the clock, so it'll probably come in around 28-ish. That seems okay. It is December 10th still. So we only have 21 days. 21 days left in the year. Crazy how time flies. But that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So thanks for listening as always. And yes, quaglingSand.com will look nicer eventually. Did I do procrastination? Yeah, I mentioned that before. Yeah. Now you know. All right. Thanks for listening as always, and we'll catch you next week. Or don't forget the other various audio programs that I produce weekly on different days. You can find all those on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, and I'll leave that there. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.